Did you know that 9.9% of every dollar invested in projects is wasted due to poor project performance? That's $99 million for every $1 billion invested. In this session, you're going to learn how facilitated collaborative planning workshops makes collaborative planning more successful. And the information I'm going to share with you comes from real projects that have used this method and have achieved results far beyond the average project. So today what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the consequences of poor performance. We're going to look at how facilitated workshops make collaborative planning easier. We're going to look at how to adapt collaborative planning for PM² projects. And finally, we're going to explore how to run virtual planning workshops virtually. Let's start off with the consequences of poor project performance. And PM² is now standard across the EU, providing one open, free, and common project management methodology for the European community. But when you look at the big picture, this is what you find. Still too many projects failing to deliver. And if we look at this 20-year period, starting in 1994, during that time, the proportion of successful projects doubled, in fact, more than doubled, whilst the proportion of failed projects fell by half. However, for the entire time, we see this yellow line, which shows the proportion of challenged projects. Those projects that came in either late, over budget, or both, hardly fell below 40% for the entire 20-year period. I believe that poor project planning is at the heart of this problem, and recent surveys would seem to support that thinking. In one 2017 study of 600 business and IT leaders, 75% believed that projects were doomed from the start. They felt that the overall perception was that challenges started at the very beginning of a project and increased as the project progressed. In another 2018 survey by the consultancy PwC, they found that 14% of managers indicated that they were not comfortable starting a project. The report's authors went on to say that when starting a project managers should aim to feel confident through activities like research on the project type or stakeholders, by creating a plan from start to finish, or brainstorming with other team members or project managers. Now, I think that facilitated project planning workshops can help here, because what people need is not knowledge, it's not experience. They already have that. What they need is a process for pooling that knowledge in a way that is quick, easy, and effective. Back in 2010, while working for a financial services company, I devised a method for collaborative planning workshops that I called index card planning. And over a period of 5 months, we ran 35 planning workshops for projects. And let me share with you some of the feedback that we got from real participants on real projects who attended the workshops. And I'll just show you here some of the real feedback that we had from exit interviews. For me, the most important comment was the one on the right-hand side, where someone said, "Now I know what we need to do and that we can do this." In all, 92% of participants rated the workshops as either good or excellent. But importantly, 25% of projects after the workshops were confirmed as not viable. These projects were terminated and the funding was reallocated so it could be invested elsewhere, where otherwise it would have been put into a project that would have failed. So let me take you through how facilitated workshops make collaborative planning easier. The first thing I'll say is that this process offers a repeatable process for planning. It uses product-based planning to build plans from the top, working down in increasing levels of detail. It's the attendees themselves that create the plans, and it draws on their knowledge and their experience, and it allows them to create a plan together at one place at one time. The facilitator's role is key in this. It's the facilitator that organizes and runs the workshop and takes people through a set agenda. And it's this use of a set agenda and a facilitator that builds in and builds up the consistency. And because we have a facilitator running the workshop, it takes the pressure off the project manager. Project managers usually have a tough job because they have to organize, run, and participate in their own workshop. And because they have a facilitator doing most of this work for them, they can just sit back and relax and listen to the feedback and the input from the other attendees. They get to hear things that they might otherwise miss. And they get to focus on what they believe they need to do as project managers rather than focusing on the workshop itself. Having a facilitator is also good for the attendees. Sometimes in planning workshops, people feel that they can't speak openly and honestly in front of the project manager. What we're doing here is encouraging people to speak up, to share their knowledge and experience, and in particular, to talk about any concerns or reservations that they have, because these are usually indicators that the project is itself not viable. And it's because we encourage people to contribute their knowledge that it creates plans that people believe in. You see, when people attend planning workshops, and in fact, when they start projects, one thing that they often lack is an understanding as to why the project is important, and in fact, how success is going to be measured. And without these two things, people often lack confidence that they know what they're doing or that their efforts will be successful. With our facilitated planning workshops, 1/3 of time is spent on the project vision. Why is this project important? What does success look like? What is the result that's to be achieved? And once people have a common understanding of the vision, they can then carry on and plan in confidence. And it's because the team can plan in confidence and they have a process for developing the plan that it boosts the chances of success. The plan better reflects the actual work required to achieve the goal because the goal itself is clearer. The use of product-based planning and the use of 3-point estimates means that we create more accurate costings and budgets. And the team is aware and more aware of potential challenges that might threaten success. Often by being in one place and one time, they get to see the big picture, they get to understand the project better. They also get to understand the concerns, the reservations, and the work that others need to do. The result is that people who often come to planning workshops full of concerns and reservations about the project and their role in it, leave with a clear action plan and the confidence to implement that plan. Let me share with you a few case studies, starting with this one. And these are all real projects that use a collaborative planning workshop to plan the project. In this first case study, 12-month application development project for a public sector client. Now, the procurement stage overran by 6 months, but the client's end date, their launch date, was fixed and immovable. Because despite that, the team planned the project to achieve the client's objective, and they focused on developing and implementing the most important parts of the application first. They were able to deliver the project on the due date itself, and they were able to deliver it under budget. In the second case study, which is a data migration project for a financial services organization, they needed to move off their existing hardware platform because it was expensive to maintain, and they needed to move off onto cheaper hardware by a certain point. Otherwise, they would need to reinvest in their existing and expensive infrastructure and licenses. This workshop took place after an initial 3-month proof of concept stage, and the team were able to deliver the project in 9 months and 11% over budget. Now, although it was slightly over budget, it was still within the contingency budget that they had available. And the project was judged as a success, not least because, as we later learned, the senior IT management felt that of all the projects in their portfolio, this was the least likely to succeed, when in fact, it was judged the project of the year. The third case study, and the final case study, was a big data project. Now, big data projects have even worse success rates than other IT projects. More than 80% of big data projects are outright failures. Outright failures. But the team that planned this project, although they understood they had a number of significant challenges to overcome, they were always confident that they would be able to achieve the objective. They delivered the project in the due time, and they delivered it 10% under budget. So let's look at how we can adapt collaborative planning for PM² projects. And a big strength of the PM² method is its focus on the 4 pillars of governance, lifecycle, processes, and artifacts. And collaborative planning workshops build on those 4 pillars by making sure that during the planning workshop, we identify the appropriate artifacts, process, and governance for the project. Let me show you how that works. Projects themselves, or the workshops themselves, are broken into 3 parts. The first part of that, after bringing the team together and explaining the goal of the workshop, is where the project sponsor or the project owner spells out the vision for the project. Why is the project important? What does success look like? What's in and out of scope? How does this align with the organization's strategy or objectives? And it's by making sure that everybody understands that background, that goal, that vision, and how this aligns to the strategic objectives, everyone has the same common understanding of what needs to be done and why. Once we do that, the team reviews their expectations of the workshop. And this is a very important part because it gets people to speak up about any concerns they have, any information they want to take away from the workshop. And you can review these expectations at the end of the workshop, and that's built into the workshop format. The second part of the workshop, after explaining the planning process, is where you divide the project into work streams and where the team starts to identify the key milestones for each work stream. And these milestones spell out the route or the path to success for each of the work streams. And this is the key point where we build in the engagement and the belief in the method and in the project, because it's the attendees and the interactive nature of the workshop that allows them to build on the engagement and develop confidence in what they're doing. Once they completed the development of the work streams and key milestones, we can review the high-level plan and we can make sure that it addresses the project vision that was spelled out by the project owner or project sponsor. In the third part of the workshop, we take the high-level milestones and then we create the deliverables breakdown structure and identify the project artifacts that are required for each of the milestones. We do that for the entire project. And at the end of that, we then start to add in the timeline to see whether the project itself is viable. After that, we identify the end of phase and interphase governance review points. And once we've done that, we review everything. We review the expectations to make sure that they were addressed and any concerns were answered. And we review the high level and the detailed plan to make sure that that achieves the project vision. Participants, though, are asked not to bring anything to the workshop so that they don't arrive at the workshop with preconceived ideas either about the project or about their role in it. Instead, we allow the facilitator to drive the meeting forward, to create the materials for the workshop and to take people through the set agenda and process. While the other attendees and the other participants, they bring with themselves their knowledge, their experience, and their skills. And this maps very well to the PM² canvas, because as well as building out the detailed plan, we can then take a lot of the information that was created in that workshop to populate the PM² canvas, including the project scope, the outputs and deliverables, the detailed desired outcomes and benefits, the assumptions, the constraints, and the milestone schedule. The remainder of the PM² canvas is also boosted by the work that had been done in the workshop. So let's look now at how you can run these workshops virtually, because as I'm sure some of you will have been thinking, everything you've seen so far shows people working face-to-face and working with index cards. And we have to adapt that process in the light of COVID-19. And there are two things that we can do here. The first one is to still run these workshops in person, so you can still run them in person with appropriate social distancing and in larger venues and settings. So bigger meeting rooms to give people the ability to spread out and space out. But a second way and an easier way is to run these workshops virtually. And it is entirely possible to get the same outcomes from a virtual workshop as you can with an in-person workshop. In fact, there are only two things you need to do that. The first is a meetings platform, Skype, Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. There are others, but these are probably the ones that you will be most familiar with. The second thing that you need is a collaboration tool. And by that, I mean a tool that allows multiple people to update a document on screen in real time, and where others are able to see the changes as they happen. You can use Google Workspace or Microsoft 365's version of Microsoft Word. Both of those will work. In fact, the only other thing that you do need is a facilitator, because you will still need a facilitator to run the meetings platform, to organize and provide the collaboration tools, and to run the workshop through the set agenda process. So to summarize, 9.9% of the investment in projects is currently wasted due to poor project performance. Poor project planning is at the heart of that problem. And although the work that the PM Squared Alliance is doing, particularly through the PM Squared methodology, that will add a big difference. I believe that facilitated collaborative workshops has a role to play. I believe there will come a time when collaborative planning workshops will be the way that people plan. And with your help, that time will be soon.